Good evening, welcome. We'll just get started. This is the City Council meeting of September 6, 2022. Clerk, would you please do the roll?
Mr. Fuller.
Here.
Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Ms. Materni. Here. Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Van Dusen.
Here.
Mr. Weber.
Here.
Would you please join me, if you're able, in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes of the council meeting of August 16.
I believe everyone has received a copy of the public hearing as well as the council meeting for the 16th. If there are no objections, we'll consider those passed.
Did you have a clarification?
The clarification was resubmitted with that on there.
No objections.
Okay, that's deemed admitted. Special reports, we have none today. We may have some next couple of council meetings. Letters, communications, and citizen communication. Sure, come on up. Please introduce yourself, say your name and address. And
Hi, my name is Cheryl Swisher. I live at 1782 Horseshoe Bend Drive in Perrysburg. I wanted to come and talk to council tonight because I've kind of exhausted all of our avenues through the school district with the problem that we're having in our neighborhood, and I'm coming to council to ask them to look at some sort of solution on what's happening in our neighborhood, because the school has come to a point where they no longer feel there's anything they can do to help. We live in Horseshoe Bend, which is right behind Levis Commons. It butts up to the, I don't know if you call it the back of the front of the high school. 2 years ago, there was one individual student who started parking in our neighborhood to avoid parking on the school grounds. I don't know if that was because of not wanting to buy a parking permit or because it's just nuts over there at the end of the day. Both my kids attended Perrysburg and they both graduated from Perrysburg. They both have walked that sidewalk and walked that parking lot and they've almost gotten hit every time. I get it. We asked the school to talk to this individual to tell people, please don't park in our neighborhood, because they're parking in our neighborhood and then they're walking to the high school. So their car sits there all day. It started with one, and I tried to be proactive because I knew one was going to turn into 20, was going to turn into 40, which it has. I talked to Tom Hostler on several different occasions, and he was very cooperative, but there's really nothing the school can do. They did do like an announcement saying, please don't park in that parking lot, the whole good neighbor thing, but it has just exasperated into this massive amount of cars in our subdivision between the hours of 3 and 4. My daughter has almost been hit coming home from college at the 3 o'clock, because what they do is they park on both sides of the road. So then that makes it so only one vehicle can go one direction either way. We have asked them several times. We walked along cars and asked them politely, please don't do this. This is our neighborhood. We live here. Our kids live here, and we don't like to have 20, 30 cars sitting out there. Going back to the original car that was out there, when we started working with the school, and the school resource officer actually pulled in the individual student and spoke with them, and his response was, my mother's a police officer. She told me that I can do this. So, that was kind of my issue. We're all supposed to be good neighbors. We're all supposed to be helpful. I work for a school district myself. I've been in school administration for over 20 years. I've sat at board meetings, thousands of them, like some of you have probably done. So I know what it's like, and I know when their hands are tied. I know the school has no jurisdiction over parking on the street. And they have exhausted any avenue to get these people to stop doing this. So I'm coming to you. That was the next step. Mr. Hostler recommended coming to City Council to speak with you to see if there's anything that you can do. I don't know what the solution is, but I don't know if, like you say, they can only park on one side of the street, if that would be safer for our neighborhood kids and for the students. Because what's happening, like I said, is they're creating a bottleneck in our subdivision, and it probably affects most of the houses on Horseshoe Bend. Around that where the sidewalk leads back to the high school. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, But there is a sidewalk there that was supposed to be for our kids, our subdivision kids, to get to school. And now we have students parking there, and the worst of it is the parents that come to pick them up at 3. Because they have absolutely, the people that we've dealt with have had no consideration for the fact that we live there. I've had a gentleman get out of his car and scream at me in front of his daughter because I was pulling in the subdivision this way. He was parked in front of my driveway, and I told him I wanted to turn in. I refused to move, which made him not able to go anywhere. And I sat there for 15 minutes. Because that's my house, that's my driveway, I should be able to have ample access to get in there. They turn around in our driveways, they have no consideration for our properties. It was witnessed that one individual pulled up into somebody's driveway and then drove off through their yard. So it's gotten out of hand. And like I said before, with the comment that was made from the first individual student, now that student's brother is doing the same thing there. And again, I would hope that as a community, as a city council, as the police department, and we have a police officer that lives in our neighborhood, like 4 doors down from us. I would assume that you'd want to work with the community members in order to, facilitate something like this instead of saying to your children, they can't do anything about it. So I'm just asking you to maybe come out and take a look at 3 o'clock in Horseshoe Bend, see if you can get through there. I have 2 adult children still living at home going to college, and I don't appreciate the fact that they can't come. They avoid coming home at between 3 and 4 o'clock, which isn't right. We live there.
Let me just a couple things. Well, first off, as having a parent who said his kids go through the school and had to go through that parking lot at any time between, as you describe it, 3:25 and 4 o'clock, I think everybody would stipulate exactly as you describe it. I was not aware of this issue, and the administration will immediately at our staff meeting tomorrow. We'll talk to the chief of police and see, because certainly there's an enforcement component there. There's also some good neighbor issues. I also now know why Superintendent Hassler left a message for me today about a parking issue. So,
well, I'm not. It's not because of me. I haven't talked to Tom in months.
Yeah.
This is just an issue that it's been kind of going around for, like I said, the last couple of years. This is the 3rd year. It's one of those things where it's like, I keep telling myself, it's just an hour, don't worry about it, just an hour, it's not a big deal. My husband is home on Monday, so he's out there and he's asking people politely not to park there.
I'm not sure exactly what the limitations on enforcement would be, but it's certainly something that we should look into, and I'm sure we will reach out to the schools tomorrow as well. Because there certainly are limitations as to what they can do. This may be a police enforcement issue regarding parking and also access. We will take a look, and do we have your contact information?
Tom knows who I am.
Okay, so we will follow up with you or through Tom and get that information and get back to you, because there's certainly something that impacts the quality of your life and in your home. So that's certainly something.
Thank you. I appreciate your help, and if you have any other questions or anything.
Sure, I have a question. Yes.
Hi.
Is this just a problem just between 3 and 4 where parents are picking up the kids, or are the students parking there in the morning and
It's both.
They're there all day?
It's the parking issue all day is probably maybe 6 or 7 cars, but in the evening from 3 to 4, it's probably 20 to 30.
Oh, wow. So that's the parents.
That's the parents.
It's more than the students. It's the parents.
Right, and it's the parents that we have spoke to ask them, and basically, honestly, we said, how would you like it if I parked outside of your house during the day when you're coming and going? But yeah, it started with the students. That's why we try to work into the school. And like I said, I've worked with Tom for years. So we have a good working relationship, and I knew that he would do everything. I believe he said he spoke to the city administrator. It would have been 2 years ago. And that's kind of where he redirected me then. That's why I'm coming here now. It's just, I was hoping it would go away. It goes away over the summer. You kind of forget about it.
Question, does the home HOA thought about removing that sidewalk, eliminating access?
The home HOA does not exist.
Not exist. Yeah, it's probably in the city. It might be in the city.
I mean,
You mean the sidewalk would be a city right away versus just an
Well,
easement?
and I don't necessarily know that I want the sidewalk taken out.
No,
The
but that's-
sidewalk was put there for a purpose, because I can guarantee you if the sidewalk wasn't there, they'd be walking through our yards.
Yeah.
Because they do it anyways. I mean, we have kids all the time. I mean, about a year ago, we found a student in our backyard rolling around not clothed. They constantly walk between the high school and our property, but you know what? They're kids. They live in the subdivision, they're not harming anything, I don't care about that. But I do care when they're parking on both sides of the roads and it causes an issue with my children and myself, my husband getting in and out of our subdivision safely.
If there's an emergency, it'd be hard to get through that.
If there was an emergency, a fire truck would not get through there.
It's gotta be, my guess is the developer, did an easement.
Cheryl, one more question. Do you know if Tom had ever contacted the parents and told them, please don't pick up your children in Horseshoe Bend?
I know that when Dr. Short was in high school, and I was dealing with this with Tom, maybe it was 2 years ago, that Tom did tell me that he did announce over they did make an announcement, please don't park there. I don't know if he specifically reached out to individual parents, but I can tell you that after I made the complaint, that the police officer whose son was parking in our subdivision drove through our subdivision every morning at 7 a.m.
It looks like there's some work to do for administrative, but it also looks like, just looking at it, that we don't have any no parking signs, which would be a possible administrative remedy. So let us, well, I guess, would you please give your information to Angel?
Oh.
And so we can make sure we can contact you directly, and we will do some due diligence on our end and see if we can make it better.
Okay, perfect.
Find out if any council as well.
Yeah, we will keep council informed.
Update safety committee maybe?
Yeah, that's fine, we'll update the safety committee, that's fine.
Okay,
Thank
thank you for
you.
your time.
Any other councilors? I do have one. I was instructed, and when Den tells me to say something, I'm going to say it. He's very glad that they're having the, what's the name of the event on the 24th? Homecoming event.
Homecoming.
Yeah, he's very glad that they're having it again, and excited about the event. So that's what Denny wanted you all to know. Administrative reports. I can't say better than Denny. No report. City administrator?
No report.
Finance director?
No report.
Law director?
I would ask the Lions Council make a motion regarding ordinance 47, 2022, annexation of what we have colloquially, I can't even say that this evening, what we have used in common terms as the Taco Bell property.
I would like to introduce ordinance 47, 2022, and move the rules to be suspended to allow first reading by number and title only, and dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 47, 2022, accepting the petition from Stephen M. Kaczynski for annexation into the city.
I would move that ordinance 47, 2022 be passed.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other
Nothing else.
president of council?
Thank you, Mayor. I had no report tonight.
Committee reports, finance and economic development?
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report, but our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 13th at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you. Safety committee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our safety committee meeting was held on August the 23rd and was called to order at 6:01 p.m. Committee members present were Barry Van Huzen, Mark Weber, GM attorney. Also present were Bridget Cabot, city administrator, Keith Sandretto, law director, and Tom Granata, deputy chief, fire chief. The minutes were approved from our July 26th meeting. Mike Hickerson, Perrysburg fire paramedic, president of the Perrysburg IAFF 3331, stated that they get a lot of satisfaction out of making a difference in people's lives. He stated with Perrysburg in 2002, when we were a smaller community, before a lot of change and growth, At that time, they were running with 4 or 5 men crews, and 3 people would come in from the standby list, effectively having a staffing level of 7. Mr. Hickerson stated that the minimum staffing today is 7, 20 years later. He added that the International Association of City Managers states that the average staffing for any city over 10,000 citizens is 1.52 firefighters or paramedics per 1,000 citizens. Mr. Hickerson stated that where we are at now is an inappropriate level of staffing. Mr. Weber asked if he had recommendations, and Mr. Hickerson stated he would like to see the city hire 6 people right away, bringing the shift to 11 people per shift, either EMTs or paramedic firefighters. Mr. Hickerson stated that the call volume is greatly increased and that the majority of their calls are for EMS. He added that Perrysburg supplies them with great equipment, but all of the equipment in the world does not matter if they do not have the people to get that person out the door. Mr. Hickerson stated that a 4-person crew can complete the same number of fire run tasks 5.1 minutes faster than a 3-person crew, which is significant when a fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. He added that he is a huge proponent of community CPR, that everyone should know how to do it and that it saves lives. Mr. Hickerson presented numbers on how our neighboring communities are staffed. Mr. Hickerson stated that people's lives are in their hands, and if they are not giving it up their all, they could leave them with a disability or not survive. Mr. Weber asked how long there had been a staffing of 7. Mr. Hickerson stated that they are still staffing at 7 since the 20 years he has been in Perrysburg. Ms. Cabot stated that the administration is taking notes and will respond. I share the appreciation of what they do and fully recognize the importance of what the firefighters bring to the city and its people. I also added that I took a lot of notes so there can be a conversation with the administration addressing these issues. Under other business, Ms. Weber asked if Ms. Materney or I, Mr. Van Huzen, had been approached by anyone asking about the animal control officer. Ms. Materney stated that the only issue she has heard about are cats, and Mr. Weber would like to know how it is working from the police chief. Mr. Van Huzen wants to see this on the agenda for next month, and Ms. Cabot stated that the animal control officer is doing duties outside of his scope and authority at one time. The Wood County Dog Warden is doing exactly what they are supposed to be doing. ACO is supposed to deal with only dogs, not cats, deer, raccoons, skunks, according to their code. There being no further business, we adjourned at 7:11, and our next meeting will be September 27th at 6 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Recreation?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm texting the kids to remind them to get the PJs on through their Alexa app. We have no report here, and our next scheduled meeting is September 13th at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. Planning and zoning?
No report, Your Honor. Will be tomorrow night at 5:30.
Thank you. Personnel?
Yeah, we have a report, and I'm going to keep it brief tonight, considering we had a meeting on August 23rd. Normal characters were present, approved the prior month's meeting minutes. Had a quick update on the deputy administrator. There will be more to come in our next meeting. Under other business, we discussed it's an ongoing agenda item at this point, discussion on family planning and how we can better serve our employees. With that, with more to come on that in the future. That's it, and report.
Thank you. Public utilities?
Thank you, Mayor. We had a meeting at August 24th, 2022. There were no citizens' concerns, and committee members, actually, Jonathan Smith was not present. Their approval of the minutes from July, and there was a discussion and presentation given on the standing water overflow in the Grassy Creek area. Kathleen Smith, Agent Sawyer, she did a representation on the master plan and follow-up via Zoom. Significant discussion was had by the committee members and also residents in that area. I'm going to read the details of that. These minutes are presented and are available to the public, and all the details regarding that. Sewer credits tabulation, Ms. Gotzi presented sewer credits tabulation $75.26. There were no objections, and those recommendations, or no objections to approving those. Excuse me. Updates on the Fort Meigs ditch. I asked if there are any updates on the ditch. Ms. Gotzi had received back a stage 1 plan from the design firm. Mr. Thomas will circulate those. Spending department typically review any construction drawings for subdivisions, including planning and zoning, fire, utilities, stormwater, service, and engineering. We'll also submit those plans with any notes, issues, and concerns. The firm has until March 1st, 2023 to provide the final stage 3 plan that the city has approved. It awarded the digester improvement design contract. Ms. Gotzi stated that the law director prepared documents for design phase 4 of the improvement project for the wastewater treatment plant involving digesters. There are safety improvements, relocation of the gas flare, replacement of the corroding pipeline, inspection of the electrical system, review of the conditioning and mixing pumps, and assisted preparing the bidding documents. Jones Henry was the highest ranked and selected. Ms. Materney asked if we got a grant for part of that. Ms. Gotzi stated that we received $175,000 grant from the OPWC. There being no objections, this is recommended before the City Council to under other business. I say that I do go to construction projects, and the city does do a great job of upkeep on the wastewater treatment plant. Thank the department for staying on top of that. It also mentioned construction bidding. She had shared some documents of the law director and had needed to go above and beyond with the taxpayer dollars. There was no further business that evening when we adjourned at 7:47 p.m. Our next meeting is Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. We do have one piece of legislation. I'd like to introduce Resolution 73-2022 and move that the rules be suspended. Allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third readings. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Materney?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 73, 2022, authorizing an agreement with Jones and Henry Engineers LTD in the amount not to exceed $177,200 for engineering and design services for the wastewater treatment plant and declaring an emergency.
Move that Resolution 73-2022 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Materney?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes. That concludes my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Trying to do these in order today, which is not my normal practice. Service Committee.
Last but not least. Meeting was called to order at 5:30 by Chairperson Jan Materney, committee members present were Jan Materney, Kevin Fuller, Mark Weber. Also present were Bridget Cabinet, City Administrator, and Brian Thomas, City Engineer. There being no objections, the minutes of July 27, 2022 approved 3-0. Permission to submit application to participate in the local Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and Local Transportation Improvement Programs. Mr. Thomas explained that with scoring, it's hard to get public utility projects funded and it's easier to get roadway projects. He further explained that the odds of getting a utility grant would probably not happen, and they were looking to get some resurfacing work done on Echo Junction Road from 25 to the railroad tracks. It was last repaved in 2002. Mr. Thomas needs something from the city that they have permission to apply. Mr. Weber asked if it has to be road rather than residential area. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Has to be that section. Mr. Thomas answered that scoring-wise, they get more points if it is heavily traveled road rather than residential area. There being no objections, the committee agreed 3-0 to recommend this to council. Citizens concerned. Hank Holland, Crandon Drive, 132 Crandon Drive, has lived there since 1977 when the home was in the township. Mr. Holland stated that the city has only patched the streets and they have fallen apart. He added that they deserve to have the property looking good. Mr. Holland stated that the city is not putting in the base, that they should keep it vegetarian since we live in an area that is swamp. Mr. Holland recommended that the new subdivisions in the city should be required to put in a good base, which would save the city money. Ms. Materney asked if there are standards that developers have to adhere to. Ms. Cabot stated that there are standards which she believes are in their ordinances. Ms. Materney stated streets that were built in the township do not have to adhere to city standards. Mr. Thomas stated that there's a city ordinance for the minimum amount of asphalt and some base that has to be put in. Mr. Thomas had no objections to reviewing the standards. Mr. Fuller added that it would be nice to know that the surrounding areas could be annexed in the city, and with what their standards are, they're up to the city standards. Downtown ADA improvement options. Carrie Wallstein, I'll apologize up front if I butcher anybody's name, I'm sorry. 145 West 2nd Street is here to discuss the downtown ADA compliance issue. She has 2 questions. The first question is, has the firm that designed this plan executed a plan to that degree in a community similar to ours that they could come and visit and see? Her second question is, if the mayor has visited any cities that have given them the inspiration to make this happen that they could go see firsthand. Ms. Wallenstein is hoping that the city council will listen to the downtown business and property owners. Ms. Materney stated that there will be several more discussions, and this is just the beginning. Ms. Cabot stated that those questions had not been asked before, but they will look into it. Deborah Bourne, 125 East Front Street, is here to support the downtown business owners. She would like to know if the city, if the Department of Justice has been contacted, and if there's a lawsuit filed. Ms. Bourne stated that the city cannot tell the business owners that they have to do something, and that the complaint has to be complained to the Department of Justice. She suggested getting a portable ramp that they could put in and out of the businesses, and Mr. Weber stated this plan is not forcing any property owners to do anything. Matt Schlosky, 213 Louisiana Avenue, asked about the total cost of the project. Mr. Weber stated that there are 2 options. Mr. Schlosky asked that, again, I'm butchering names, I'm sorry, asked how many complaints there were. Ms. Cabot stated that she was not aware of any complaints because they went to the building center, but there are 6 or 7. Mr.
Skutinsky.
Thank you.
You're making me hungry by saying Schlotsky.
Anybody knows me knows I can't say names. Stated that means that 0.2% of the population has complained about ADA. They are here to support the handicapped and help them get into their businesses. He showed a portable ramp, which would be an easy solution and cost $300 to $700 each. Ms. Materney has stated that we are fixing issues with our right-of-way. Mr. Thomas took the committee members through the options so that everyone can better understand the 2 separate options. The second option costs more money, but it makes everything flow better and gives it a nicer look. Mr. Thomas addressed citizens' concerns about outdoor seating, some of which would be impacted. You know that the drainage would be addressed. Ms. Cabot stated that even though option 2 is more aesthetically pleasing, there are still hiccups because of the doors, so there's still railing ramps in option 2. Mr. Thomas stated this concept to get good feedback, positive and negative, does not mind getting negative feedback, it was all good. Mr. Skoltinsky asked how long the time frame would be for construction, is thinking of economic impact, and that it would put people out of business. Mr. Thomas guessed from start to finish at most it would be 6 months. Emily Conley, 246 West 2nd Street, is not a business owner, spends a lot of time walking around downtown Perrysburg. She wanted to confirm that it has not been voted on and it's just an idea. As a pedestrian, she sees a lot of issues with this, especially during farmers markets. John Naylor, 101, 103, 109, 115 Louisiana Avenue likes the proposal about portable ramps and bi-portable ramps for every one of his tenants if that helps solve the problem. He sees a problem with blocking the sidewalks during the farmers market and sees downtown Perrysburg commercially being heavily damaged. Wellstein, 145 West 2nd, 116 Louisiana Avenue, thinks our downtown is a jewel and that we have to get this right. He stated the 6 or 7 complaints in the last 5 years is a very low number. This will hinder a lot of foot traffic and will make downtown less aesthetically pleasing. He's strongly against anything that takes away the outdoor seating from restaurants. It is their lifeline. Everyone from Perrysburg loves it. Patrick Leahy, 104 Louisiana Avenue, stated they have people coming now with disabilities and their biggest complaint is not the 3-inch step, but walking a distance from the parking. He wished that would be the focus going forward. Outdoor seating during patio season and what pays bills. Mr. Fuller stated that he appreciated the business owners and that they know their clients and customers well. Dan DeSalle, 201 Louisiana Avenue, stated he missed the last meeting. He asked what with the door if the restaurants even need a fencing and patio now. Anthony, I'm not even gonna try it, 941 Cherry Street, and partner at Swig, asked if this had anything to do with their doorways and if it is misdirected. Ms. Maternity stated that it was a good starting place and gives us a point of what we do not want. Mr. Bouillon, asked if people have trouble getting down the sidewalk now, as it is. He stated that he will spend the money to make it fully compliant. Ms. Wallenstein asked, as a business owner, that none of this is set in stone and is a discussion. Mr. Weber stated that this will not move forward without city council approval, that we may even go to a committee involved. Mr. Terry stated that there's so much more research and we're not even close. There being no further business, the meeting adjourned 6:38, respectfully submitted by Dan Attorney. The next meeting is Wednesday, September 28th at 5:30. I do have a resolution I'd like to introduce.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to introduce.
Okay, we'll introduce the resolution and we'll talk about it.
Okay, I would like to introduce resolution 74-2022. And move that the rules be suspended and allow for its reading by number and title only and to dispense with second, third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Resolution 74, 2022, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Program and to execute contracts as required and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolution 74-2022 be passed and emergency.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
I want to follow up on an email I sent, I think, to all of you. I would like, I don't know if others agree, maybe my apologies to the committee. Maybe if I had attended their meeting, I wouldn't need this, but if we could have some sort of public presentation on what the downtown, I see there are two options. What we're talking about, this is starting to generate a lot of chatter, and we've all gotten emails on it, I know. And I'm hard pressed to respond because I don't even know what the heck's in the plan, so. And as I think I mentioned, I would prefer this not even be in a committee of the whole format. That calls upon each of us to then react, give opinions. I just wanted a little bit of an educational session. If the administration could set that up, and to bring in whoever does the plan and kind of just kind of explain what's on the drawing board for now. From the minutes, it doesn't sound like we're going to pass something in the next 2 months, but if it's the downtown, that's going to be significant. People are going to be interested, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about it.
Sure, we've tried to get out materials to council as we've been going along with different proposals, but I think that's a good idea. We're more than happy to have a presentation to council. I think I have heard since this meeting, we have had several people who are very concerned about not doing anything. So there will be people, I would expect at the next committee meeting, who want their say about, well, they contacted me, there's a meeting. But I think it would be a good idea if council wants to set up a time to kind of have a presentation. There are restrictions on what can be discussed, but I think it can be set up that the presentation, the council's really just not asking or deliberating, but it's kind of a presentation.
Right.
We can make that arrangement. We'll work with council to get a time. We believe that this is a significant something. Sylvania is working towards making theirs ADA compliant. Mommy, you can talk about the plans at a lot of different levels, but that will be ADA compliant. It's been 30 years. One of the questions hypothetically was, has the mayor seen it? The mayor has seen it, and those towns are thriving, and their downtowns are thriving. And I saw this weekend 3 people with disabilities trying to get into buildings in downtown, and guess what business they went to? One where they could get in. So if you're a business owner and you want business, you would think that you'd be amenable to somebody in a wheelchair literally went across the street couldn't get in, went to another store, restaurant.
What were the cities again that you said?
One of them is Naperville, Illinois,
Naperville, Illinois?
and I can't remember, I'll get the other one.
Those are college towns, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And there's some other ones as well that I did some. So it can be done, and the communities can thrive. So, this is also, to be frank, one of the issues is it came to the attention of the administration. While 6 complaints are not a large percentage, those people have rights under federal law. And currently, the city, not the business owners, are not in compliance. So we all have an obligation to do our best to ensure and protect the city's rights and interests. So I think no plan is set in stone. Nothing is nothing is finalized. But from my perspective, as a community that has a thriving downtown, we want to keep it thriving, and we don't want to be subject to certain things that could happen if we. And I would say, and I said this in the letter that I think I sent to all the council members, when I got here in 1990, downtown was not thriving. Improvements were made. It's doing a lot better. It's thriving. That was 20 years ago. There's opportunity for further enhancements and improvements, and I think it's worth it for the city to invest in downtown. So we look forward to that discussion and as much input from council so we can make downtown Perrysburg continue to flourish. Any other business before this council?
Yes, Mayor, I just want to, real quick, I know Jonathan's trying to scoot out the door here, but I just want to wish all the city employees and all our residents and people who are in Perrysburg a happy Labor Day. I know it's the day after, but hope everyone enjoyed their day off.
Thank
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any opposition? If not, we're adjourned.
See you. Take care.
Go.